You mentioned the engine side, such a big project for Red Bull. What are the key takeaways in these early stages, drivability, feel, all of that kind of thing?
Still work in progress, but I think we've hit the ground running quite well with those things. So it's still a very complicated formula, I think, for everyone. So there's still quite a bit of work to do, but that's normal.
Where does this leave you for Bahrain and the official pre-season tests that are coming up? A lot of data to get through now.
Yeah, exactly that. And then we'll go again in Bahrain.
And final question for you, Max. Just how are you feeling heading into this year? A short winter break, but already building up to this new era of Formula One and everything that's on the way in 2026.
Ill. I'm a bit sick, so.
Well, I hope you
feel better at the start of the season.
Hope you feel better soon. Thanks, Max.
Max Verstappen didn't chase the spotlight in Barcelona. He didn't go for fastest laps. He didn't even speak much. But the way Red Bull ran the RB22 was far more revealing than anyone expected. Lap after lap, heavy fuel, hard tires, no mistakes, no complaints, no drama. And yet, Verstappen was consistently within striking distance of cars running faster tires, lower fuel, and higher engine modes. It wasn't about performance. It was about control. Because the RB22 didn't need to show speed. It showed something far more dangerous. A calm, effortless efficiency. That only works when the car is built around one thing: Max. And now, with just days to go until Bahrain, rival teams are starting to realize Red Bull may have quietly built Verstappen the most complete car he's ever driven. 5 days of testing in Barcelona. Closed garages. No live feeds. Just numbers and silence. Every team approached it differently. Some went for glory runs. Some focused on reliability. Others, like McLaren and Ferrari, made headlines late. Red Bull did none of that. They stayed quiet, deliberate. Verstappen missed the opening day. He wasn't rushed. No panic. No catch-up program. When he finally stepped into the RB22, there was no build-up. Just a long run. Then another. Then another. No tire switch. No low-fuel push. Just repetition. Like someone going through a checklist, knowing exactly what they're looking for. By the end of day 5, he'd done 118 laps. Second only to Russell in total mileage. But what stood out wasn't the number. It was the consistency. Lap after lap within 2/10, even on used tires. Even on fuel loads far above qualifying trim. The RB22 didn't look aggressive. It looked stable. Planted. And Verstappen? No radio complaints. No oversteer corrections. Just complete control. It didn't make headlines. But it made people inside the paddock stop and watch. Because when a car behaves like that, without even trying to go fast, it usually means one thing. Someone's building something bigger than a test run. Red Bull never ran soft tires. Not once during the entire test. They didn't lower the fuel load. They didn't switch engine modes. And Verstappen never went hunting for lap time. But that's exactly what made people nervous. Because even in those conditions, on C2S and C3S, with full tanks and race setups, the RB22 was lapping within reach of the front. Sector 1? Clean. Sector 2? Stable. Sector 3? Shockingly fast. That's the one that caught attention. A tight, low-speed section where setup weaknesses show themselves. Verstappen didn't struggle there. He gained. Even when compared to Hamilton's Ferrari, or Norris on softs, the RB22 was rotating with less input, and exiting with more grip. How is that possible on harder tires, with more weight? That's the question rival engineers started asking. Because either Red Bull is hiding a massive amount of performance, or they've created a car that's fast without needing to push. And for a driver like Max, who thrives when the car is predictable at the edge, that's not just helpful. It's terrifying. Not because of what it means for race 1, but because of what it suggests. About the foundation they've already built. From the outside, the RB22 looks familiar. Low rake. Tight packaging. That signature Red Bull balance. But under the bodywork, something's changed. The team didn't go all in on downforce this year. They went in a different direction. Stability. Energy efficiency. Low degradation. And most of all, driver sensitivity. What makes the RB22 so unusual is how responsive it is to Verstappen's input, without punishing him for aggression. Every corner, he can trail brake deeper, rotate sooner, and apply throttle earlier than expected. That's not just setup, that's architecture. According to insiders, the rear end of the RB22 has been re-engineered to maintain stability without compromising rotation. In simple terms, it allows Verstappen to drive his way, without needing to adapt to the car. It's a subtle difference, but it's one that makes everything easier, especially over a race distance. Because while others still talk about setup windows, Red Bull has built Verstappen a machine with no window at all, just grip, balance, and margin. And that margin is what Max Verstappen uses to break everyone else. Across 5 days of testing, the RB22 never ran soft tires. They never dropped fuel. They never switched modes. And that wasn't by accident. It was intentional. Because while teams like Ferrari and McLaren tested their limits, Red Bull tested their baselines. They wanted to know one thing. How fast are we when we're not trying to be fast? The answer? Fast enough to worry everyone else. Verstappen's race simulations weren't flashy, but they were consistent, dangerously so. In stint after stint, the RB22 showed less tire drop-off than any other car. No sudden graining. No setup panic. And yet, they never used DRS in its most aggressive configuration. They never opened the power unit fully. That's the part that rivals are starting to whisper about. Because the data that's available, sector times, GPS overlays, corner speeds, all show a car that's incomplete. Not in terms of development, but in terms of what it's chosen to reveal. Red Bull hasn't shown top speed. They haven't shown qualifying potential. They haven't even simulated a full attack lap. Which leads to one conclusion. They already know where they are. And if that's true, then everything we've seen so far was just the surface. And the real RB22 hasn't been let loose yet. Verstappen doesn't need the fastest car over 1 lap. He needs the most obedient one over 58. He doesn't lock up. He doesn't overheat tires. And once the balance is right, he stops making mistakes altogether. That's the danger with the RB22. It doesn't force adaptation. It bends toward him. Every corner. Every lap. He knows exactly where the limit is, without needing to feel for it. And that's where Red Bull may have struck gold. Because other teams, Ferrari, Mercedes, even McLaren, are still chasing versatility. Cars that work across different setups, different tracks, different styles. Red Bull didn't do that. They built one car. For one driver. And they made it perfect for him. Now imagine what that does to a title fight. It means Max isn't reacting to pressure. He's driving in flow. He's racing with headroom. While everyone else is hanging on. That changes strategy. It changes tire usage. It changes how aggressively they can undercut. It also changes how early they can push in a stint. Something Verstappen now does without fear. Because if the car's balance never fades, then the risk curve flattens. And when you flatten the risk, you extend the lead. Bahrain will be the first test. But it might not be a close one. If the RB22 delivers under real race conditions, even 80% of what it showed in testing, then Red Bull won't be defending a title. They'll be accelerating away from one. The RB22 hasn't shown its true pace. Not in Sector 1. Not in qualifying trim. Not with DRS fully open. Verstappen hasn't even pushed. Not once during testing. And still, the paddock is watching. Closely. Carefully. Because something about this car feels finished. Too finished. Too quiet. Usually, Red Bull starts slow. Builds into the season. Finds performance mid-year. But this time, it's different. They arrived in Barcelona calm. Not behind schedule. Not uncertain. Just ready. And if Bahrain confirms what Barcelona hinted at, that Verstappen's not just fast, but completely comfortable, then the pressure won't be on him. It'll be on everyone else. To respond. To guess. To adapt to a car they still don't fully understand. And that's the real fear. Not that the RB22 is fast, but that it's not finished evolving. And no one knows what it looks like at full power. Except Max.